Hi, and a warm welcome to our Virtual Coach Advantage podcast today. The topic we're going to be delving into is why EQ is more important than IQ as a leader. I'm Emma Calvert, co founder and coach at Springboard Future, and your podcast host. And I'm joined today by my wonderful co founder and our master coach, Nina Bettridge. This is a huge topic for us to discuss. We're going to be looking at why emotional empathy is really something that you need in your leadership and management toolkit and how you can develop yours. So I'm really excited to talk about this topic today, and I don't even know if I've perhaps made the title a little controversial, but let's dive in. Nina, can you firstly explain what the difference between EQ and IQ is for us?
Yes, IQ measures your intelligence, your skills, your qualifications, your ability to make meaning and to decipher situations and technical issues. Your EQ is something quite different. Emotional intelligence often lies within intuition. It's what you pick up when you are in situations from a body point of view, from an emotional point of view, and from a language point of view. These are the hidden signals that often remain unsaid, but they can give you a full picture of what is going on with an individual or indeed a team.
So what do you think, Neela, of my sort of big question on this podcast? Do you think it's a bit unfair of me to suggest that EQ is more important than IQ for leaders?
I think as you become more senior, emotional intelligence actually becomes more important than your IQ. I think in the start of your career, possibly you get rewarded for your IQ with your first job, perhaps even your first couple of promotions. But then as you lead people and your teams get bigger, your ability to lead people with emotional intelligence is actually what gets rewarded because it affects empathy, social intelligence, what you pick up around the people that you lead. So I think it's one of these situations which I think actually, as you go through your leadership, becomes increasingly more important. So I think you're right. EQ becomes more important than IQ as you go through your career.
Well, I like to be right, so I'm glad you answered it in that way, Neela. You did talk a little bit about some of the rewards, but can you expand a little bit more on some of the benefits of having well-developed EQ?
Yes. One of the benefits, I think, of well developed EQ is firstly, that you may pause before coming to a decision about something. You will question your assumptions. You won't necessarily see them as facts around a situation or a person. You will give people benefit of the doubt. You will be constantly scanning the situations that you're in for the hidden clues, the things that are not being said. And there is a lot of that goes on within leadership of individuals and indeed leadership of teams. And my belief is the benefit of that is it makes you much more skillful about navigating difficult situations and difficult conversations, which you invariably have to have with the teams or departments in which you lead.
And what are some of the traits do you see in leaders who have got high EQ?
This is not always, but what I tend to see is that they tend to lead happier teams because they don't see life as black and white. They see the grey and are often quite good at the empathetic piece of leadership. And I say empathetic, not sympathetic, because sympathy is a completely different thing. Emotionally intelligent leaders don't shy away from the difficult decisions and the difficult conversations. It's the way that they do it, which is actually very interesting. There's this wonderful model, transpersonal model, around I'm okay, you're okay. And basically, the premise of that is that emotionally intelligent leaders will come from the point of view that my rights and responsibilities are as important as yours. But I will deal with all my conversations with you with respect, even if what I have to say may be difficult for you to hear. And so they are quite interesting, emotionally intelligent leaders, because they often are really good at questioning assumptions as facts. And they are also very good at putting respect in the middle of the table in their conversations.
I want to pick up on that point about respect, Neela, because it's something I have been following. I've been following this concept of emotional correctness for a little while now, and I love it as a concept, and it very much links to respect. So do you want to just talk to us a little bit about what emotional correctness is and how that goes together with EQ?
Well, there is a very interesting article being written by Sally Cohn on emotional correctness. And I think this is my personal view. It's not necessarily what the article talks about. But I think that emotional intelligence and emotional correctness tie in because actually, what we must not do when we are being emotionally intelligent is shut down discussion, shut down other people's ways of thinking. I think really skillful leaders are able to take on board people who have very different points of view to their own and hear what they have to say. And actually, they're very good at navigating a path through and finding common ground with people that may be very different from them. And I think this ties in very strongly into the area of diversity and inclusion, of which there is a lot of conversation about, because I am of the view that it is not healthy to shut down people's points of view that are different from yours. It is much healthier to allow an environment, particularly within the corporate or organizational settings, where all points of view are welcome. And the leader is able to sit with it in a way that hears different points of view and pick their own path. So I think that's the connection between emotional intelligence, emotional correctness, and actually this sort of very important conversation which is going on at the moment around diversity and inclusion.
Yeah, and actually, Matthew Said, his latest book, actually, Rebel Ideas, I utterly loved. It does talk exactly about that point, Neela, about cognitive diversity and why it's so important in the workplace and how that can really help the performance of your organization. And some fantastic stories in his book, everything from, kind of the intelligence agencies in the US to people climbing Everest. So highly recommend that to anybody who wants to get further down there. And you mentioned Sally Cohen there. She's got just a 5-minute TED talk called Let's Try Emotional Correctness. So highly recommend that to anyone as well. But Neela, is it one of those things, EQ, that you're born with and you have, or you just don't have? Because I think about my husband, I'm going to be really honest, Mr. IT geek, he's not got a lot of that going on.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I think some people are naturally born with it, but actually it's also developed, in my view, in childhood. It's about a sensitivity, an ability to pick up what is going on around you. But I have also seen leaders develop it, leaders who it hasn't come naturally to, but because they become so self aware with the work that they do, they actually are able to include emotional intelligence in a way that may not necessarily be natural to them. So yeah, it is an interesting thing, emotional intelligence. It can be developed in my view, but often it is actually very innate and due to the backgrounds of people where they become very attuned to what is going on around them.
Do you have any tips, Neela, for those that really want to develop EQ?
Yes, I would say the pause button is one of the most important tips that I think when I start working with the leader that I will be looking at and talking to them about, because we need to interrupt the patterns of behavior that we naturally have where we go from A to Z because it may not be correct. And we need to be able to pause to scan the environment to really unpick what the assumptions are and what the facts are and actually what is going on. So I think when you are learning emotional intelligence, being able to pause, whether through mindfulness or other techniques, is an incredibly important part of learning how to do this.
Great tips there, Nina. Thank you so much. I've really loved this conversation today. We delved into all sorts of places I didn't know we were going to go to. So I really loved our chat today. So thanks for listening today. I hope you've enjoyed our podcast. We'd love to hear your feedback, comments, and requests for other topics. So do get in touch. You can reach us via our website, which is springboardfuture.com. You can follow us on LinkedIn or Twitter. Don't forget to join us for our podcast next time, where we're going to be talking about challenging times, call for challenging leadership. Thanks for joining the Virtual Coach Advantage podcast. We hope to coach you again soon.